doing this fall is I'm running for Mayor of Vancouver on the Vancouver Marijuana Party ticket, and the BC Marijuana Party is glad to contribute finances, your literature, your advertising, and advice to help anyone campaign in the municipal election. And this is on a more non-ideological basis. Ted brought up the idea that there can be disagreements on ideology. Well, our municipal campaign is very strictly just about pot and police corruption. Police corruption is very bad in this province. You know, there's an example, for example, 2 years ago, 6 Vancouver police officers, all female remarkably, went into a marijuana grow-up, arrested the guy, hauled him up, and then proceeded to trash his place. And they sprayed shaving cream all over, they drank his liquor, and they got drunk, as it turns out. And how this all came undone is that incredibly, the police, when they first showed up, had a camera, and they took a picture of the place before they started trashing it, and then when the person got back with his lawyer after getting released, saw it, he took a picture of the after effect. And the police left the camera there with all the before pictures intact. And what the police had done is they drank the liquor and smashed the bottle. One of the police officers left her shoe there. I have no idea how she could even walk out without a shoe. But she left one of her shoes there. And so the judge said, not only did you 6 completely lie before the court as to what you did, because the evidence was there, but those people still were never suspended without pay. They were suspended briefly with pay, and then they were assigned, and these people can never testify in court again. The court said your testimony could never be valid because I've seen you lie here. And these people were not suspended. A couple of years ago, a police officer stopped a black dentist in Vancouver, in Burnaby, and basically put him into a headlock and put a gun to his head because he thought although as if he deserves it anyway, because they thought he was a pimp. He was with an Asian woman, he's a black man, so the cop said, I presumed it was a pimp situation. Put the guy in a headlock, the guy is a dentist, it turns out, just driving home and he got caught in the roadblock. That man was never suspended without pay. I mean, let alone fired. I mean, firing, you could never get a cop fired. I've never seen it happen. Police never get fired no matter how terrible they behave, no matter how many transgressions. Cops have they're princes of the city and they have a license to violate every human decent norm going, and they will never be reprimanded. And so we're running to address this in the fall. In the municipal election, it's important that we point out that the police there's no safety valve on them at all. No one criticized them. Most mayors are totally in the pocket. I mean, they let 50, 60 women get serial murdered over a period of 15 years of doing nothing in Vancouver, and the current mayor sat on that very police board. He recently said, there was nothing unusual going on. You know, I mean, police responded as normal. Well, when they can see a whole series of serial murders obviously happening before, serial abductions happening, and they continue to bust grow-offs every day with all those manpower, those 1,000 police officers use every 8-hour shift to look for pot. And remember, that's borrowed money. Remember, both levels of government are in debt. The provincial government has a bigger debt than that. So every time they raided us, when they raided us last week, it was $5,000, 8 officers for 8 hours, trucks, cars, you name it. They screwed away $5,000 so we even have to borrow. The taxpayer has to pay for and borrow money to have that happen. Oh, well, in the meantime, they have no money for critical services, as we know. So if you want to look at a cost-benefit analysis, they spend about $400 million on the drug war in this province probably every year. That's the amount of money that necessitated a tax increase to cover $400 million. I mean, if they ended the war on drugs, we could reduce the taxes. We could actually apply that to real criminality. We could actually see what kind of incredible fraud and corruption is going on in our police forces. These people are allowed to do anything they want. No one scrutinizes the police. These things only come out by accident. It's not like the police reveal a list of bad things we did this week. They're praying and hoping nobody notices, and it always comes up by accident. Like that picture, that photograph of those, of what the women officers had trashed that guy's place, hadn't shown up. No one could ever prove it. No one would ever believe it. You never believe it unless it's the smoking gun when it comes to official police corruption. You've got to have that photograph. We had that photograph. You know, unless another police officer had witnessed that one cop putting the black man in a chokehold and putting a gun to his head, there would be no official testimony to it. But his own partner was totally freaked out that this is how he behaved. I mean, if it hadn't happened to Coraline, most people wouldn't believe that an ordinary person without marijuana growing in the house could ever have an accidental visit by police in the middle. And they fabricated the information to get the warrant. To get the warrant, they said they smelled pot coming out of our dry air exhaust and that they checked the power consumption of my house and it was a bit above normal. Those are flimsy pieces of evidence anyway. But as it turns out, a reporter from a TV station called up on the highway said our consumption was about half of normal. And when you put your nose up to the dryer, it's the same smell of vanilla balance. It always is. There's no pot coming out of our dryer exhaust fan, right? And so they just make up the information to get a warrant to go in and go on a fishing expedition to see what they can find. That's a classic description of a police state, when they just invent anything they need to get in your house, to rifle through your belongings, to see what you're doing, and if nothing else, to lay a very intimidating power trip on you, saying, hey, we're keeping an eye on you. We don't even need any evidence to come to your house, so remember that. It's 3:30 in the morning, we're standing in your house, and we don't need fuck all to get in here. We made it up, okay? And we don't care, because there's nothing you can do about it, so we can come here anytime we like and do it again. And remember that. And it's only lucky that I happen to be well known enough that I can get on TV if something like that happens, or I can get on a radio show. But for most of you out there, that's never going to happen. And if you're a dark-skinned man, or a young woman, a teenager, or an older person who's frail and afraid of confrontation, you're not going to get on TV. You're not going to make a complaint, because it's going to think, hey, how could this benefit me? These guys never even get reprimanded, let alone fired. All it's going to do is make me a target for some angry cop later on. And that's precisely how a lot of people feel. That's why cops pick on the most vulnerable: immigrants, young people who don't have homes, people without good lawyers, people without a good, solid middle-class reputation, people who are colored skinned, people who don't have a proper Canadian accent, who can't speak on television articulately. I'm really grateful that I was white and born English speaking, because I can get on TV and I can sound articulate. And other white people who are the dominant culture here will look at me and say, well, gee, that's bad, it happened to him. But if you have an accent, or if you have dark skin, or you're a young person, if you dress weird, you got dreadlocks, or you have a Grateful Dead sticker, or any number of other things, you're immediately marginalized and no one pays any attention to you in big news world. But who watches the TV news? Who reads newspapers? Hardcore, conservative white people, typically. They're the people who own all the property, they own all the money, they own the political system, the establishment, and those are the people that we have to impress in order to make our point. And that's very difficult to do, because we're automatically marginalized. Most people think pot smokers are already, kind of critical of the establishment, left-wing, or whatever. So it's very, very difficult for us to make a penetration on the system. And cops know that. They know that nothing bad's ever going to happen to them, no matter how rotten, mean, and vicious they are. But one of the few outlets we have is running for office. And this year, the BC Marijuana Party is extending an invitation to anybody in their community who'd like to run. Under our slate, we'll help you. You just have to be willing to speak about the issues, about why pot should be legal, why it's wrong for these green teams to be operating in every major city, smashing and looting homes, why the DARE program should be abolished because it's just propaganda that's completely and utterly untrue. All you have to say the words is William Shakespeare, Thomas Jefferson, Pierre Trudeau, Ross Barkley, Adley, Carl Scan. What more would you like to know? That's what we tell students. A lot of people who smoke pot are really smart. A lot of people are really creative. You'll have to find that out for yourself. Here's the downsides to a lot of other substances like alcohol, tobacco. There's no downside to pot. I've never heard or seen one. It's funny that oftentimes, I go to these groups and there's somebody talk about the bad things about pot, but inexplicably nobody talk about why millions of people in Canada and 25 million people in the United States smoke pot. Kids would think that people are deliberately out to poison themselves, and there's no good reason to take all this. And instead, the irony is that every teacher I ever met smoked pot. They don't know what it's like, but if they tell the truth, they'll get fired. And that's another thing about paradox, is that on one hand, some people say it impairs, some people it says enhances, but they all want it banned for one reason or another in there. And teachers are the same way. They know that there's tons of examples of beautiful people who've done beautiful things on marijuana, but they only talk about the potential negative implications of pot, which don't exist, which are false, which are actually made up fabrications. And then if anything, police are allowed to come to these schools with uncritical acceptance and let them propagandize to our kids. Again, who are the prime beneficiaries of prohibition? Police officers. They get all the big toys, the big guns, they get big salaries. Drug squads employ millions and millions of dollars in this country to go around and disturb people's lives and ruin people's lives. They get helicopters, infrared devices, they get, all the latest toys come with the drug squad. The actual murder solving is what they're doing now on that farm. They're digging hand by hand, sifting through everything slowly. That takes time, concentration, money, focus. It's so easy instead to go bust a bunch of people growing pot, because every block's got somebody growing pot. Everywhere you go, somebody is going to have pot. In any given room, they're going to have pot. In any given street, there's going to be somebody growing pot. There's going to be somebody on every campus smoking pot. Somebody's going to be selling pot. Pot's everywhere. It's really easy to go around and arrest your fellow neighbors. And that's what I'm hoping some of you will take up the cause. I'm hoping you'll run in municipal elections elections and a pro-pot, anti-prohibition, let's get the police under control, let's get them accountable because they're a walking time bomb, they're going around terrorizing the community, and we have to do something about it. And we're civilized people, so we can't take up violent means, we have to take up peaceful means. And that means participating in the democratic process, such as it is, and getting out and saying our piece. And I hope some of you will think about that. We can help you out. It'll be really cool to see your name beside, Victoria Marijuana Party, or Nelson Marijuana Party, or Cranbrook Marijuana Party, or Vancouver Marijuana Party. It'll make you feel proud. You'll feel like you're doing something to stop the evil in the system, and that's what we're here to do. Thanks.
Hi there, I'm Marc Emery of Marc Emery Direct Seeds, of course, and in this room we have the first Sensimilla edition in North America of the Aussie Bushman, which won first place in the 2000 Nimbin Cup. And these are spectacular. If you look at these frosty resinous colas popping up all around me, really large flowering growth for just 3.5 weeks into flowering. Imagine how they're going to look at 8 weeks. They're going to be stunning. And these seeds are available from Irish Rose Seed Company at only $45 for 10 seeds. And that's spectacular for a cup winner out of Australia. It won second place in North America at our smoking test last year. And I think you're going to find this one of the most adorable sativas